What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You with another episode of Black Fathers Now. Now, dig this, man. We're going to have a really awesome conversation. And we're going to have a conversation with a brother who brings a lot to the table, a lot of perspectives, a lot of life experiences. He just brings a lot to the table. And I'm really excited to have a conversation with my friend, Leshuan Oliver. Now, the brother is a husband. He's a father of three. He's in law enforcement. He's a man of God. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, whatever. We got it. Yeah. Omega Psi Phi is the runner of this thing, right? But either way, he's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, so we allow him to give a shout out there. But the brother brings a lot to the table, and I really wanted to have a really cool conversation with him because this is really going to help somebody. So, brothers and ladies listening to in the Black Fathers Now family, let's welcome my man, Leshuan Oliver. What's up, brother?
All right, not much, man. What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me, man.
Man, dude, I'm excited to have this conversation. We've had so many offline conversations. I think it's time for us to put this thing on wax and let the world hear what we got to talk about. You dig?
Yeah, for real.
For real, man. Well, check this out, man. Before we get started, before we jump into your story, I like to give shout outs because at the end of the day, who are we without those individuals who help us to shine, who give us the platforms, give us the ability, give us the freedom to walk in purpose and be the men that we're called to be. So give a few shout outs, man, and then we'll jump into your story.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief, Mike. First of all, I want to shout out my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Without him, nothing's possible. So, secondly, my wife, who inspires me every day to be the better version of myself. That's my better half, so I got to step it up every day. My kids, Micah, Elijah, and Olivia. Not in any particular order. I actually went from youngest to oldest this go around. And then my family, like my dad, my mom, sisters, brother, all my families and friends who pick up the phone when I call them. And so too many people to mention. So I'll just leave it at that. And then, like you said, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and all the men and women on the front line serving as first responders out there. So appreciate what you do. As a fellow first line responder, shout out to all those folks and teachers. I just dropped my kids off. Man, what are we right now in pandemic without those teachers making those sacrifices, teaching these kids? So there it is.
Man, what's interesting, you really highlighted those that sacrifice for others or sacrifice on the behalf of others. And, I think when folks really hear your story and understand who you are and what you do on a daily basis, you in essence live a life of sacrifice. You're in law enforcement. You're a brother. You are a Black man in law enforcement. You got two Black sons and you're a Black man in law enforcement, especially with the climate. And you got a Black daughter too. But what I'm saying is in the climate that we're living in, it's all sacrifice for you. And, and that's why I wanted to have you on to really talk about your experience, what led you to that particular place, what inspired you to walk down that particular path. You know what I'm saying? But then as we talk about sacrifice as well, you and I had a discussion probably about 6 or 7 months ago. And it was around the birth of your youngest child, and it was on paternity leave, right? The importance of dads taking time off to spend intimate time with their newborn children, which a lot of us from a mindset perspective don't really think about. And so again, sacrifice, I thought about those two components, and it made me really think about your story and sacrifice. But lastly, when it comes to sacrifice, and this is kind of the last thing we're going to talk about, you are married to a woman who is in essence a public figure now. She's doing the doggone thing in politics and changing the world in regards to politics. And, in Nashville, I think, didn't she just get voted like the woman, something of the year or whatever it was in 2020?
The Tennessean recognized her and her co-executive director and co-founder of the Equity Alliance, Tequila Johnson, as persons of the year.
So you stop and you think about that, like as a husband of a sister who's a public figure, how do you in essence sacrifice? Because as men, we're taught to be the head, we're taught to be the lead, but you are in essence having to support this public figure who is doing the doggone thing, but yet you still a man too, right? You're not losing that manhood. So we're going to have this wide ranging conversation. I'm excited to have it, man. But again, the concept of sacrifice really reigns supreme in regards to who you are. And so, fellas, I wanted y'all to kind of get a context of what it is we're kind of going into today. And so I guess getting this thing started, take us back, brother. Like your origin story. What were some of the inspirations or the things that allowed you to come into who you are today and to have some of the perspectives that you have in regards to life?
Man, Mike, let me first of all get started. And I know this is and I definitely want to edify the brothers today listening to the show. So let me start with Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verses 5 and 6. If I can give some inspiration in that regard, and I'll get into my story, and it's relevant. 5 and 6 of the 3rd chapter of Proverbs: trust in the Lord thy God with all their heart, and lean not on thy own understanding. In all thy way acknowledge him, and he would direct our path. And since I was a kid, man, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a small town. My mother's father was a minister. My father's grandfather was a minister. And I kind of shared this 2 days ago on a conversation we had talked about, and you saw online on my Facebook page. It's that I come from the church. I come from a small town. I come from good people who's just struggling to make do. And if nothing else, that verse is so relevant because everything that has led me to this point has all been on, hey, I don't understand it, but hey, God, you lead me, I'll follow. And then he makes it make sense. And he directs our paths in such a way that when you look back, you just mentioned about the sacrifice. I never really thought about it like that. I've always looked at it more as service. I'm called to serve, but dang, you put it that way, there is a lot of sacrifice that goes into doing the things, no matter what hat. And you named at least 3, maybe even 4 different hats I wear. And I'm sure many other men wear different hats. At some point in time, you got to make sacrifice. And I think, you don't know where it ends, but if you're following, you're walking upright, it's going to end in your favor. That's all. You're going to go through it, but you're going to end in your favor. So my story starts from a small town, Mount Pleasant, Tennessee, born in Columbia, but raised in Mount Pleasant. Single mother, had my stepfather around who my mother dated. They never really married, but I grew up and I had formed a relationship with my biological father at the age of 9, and we have a good relationship now. It didn't start off that way, but a good relationship now. I was the oldest of my mother, and she had 3, but I was the 3rd to the 4th of my biological father. And my stepfather had so many kids he raised, I couldn't even keep up with them. So I have brothers that look nothing like me, but you see us, we brothers. You wouldn't even know, So that's just how that family dynamic worked. Went to University of Tennessee at 18 and stayed up there where I started my career in law enforcement. Went to college just because that was the way of having a better life. Everyone from my small town, you got to get away from here. You got to go start and go to school. And God has so much on you. You're going to do great things. I had all these positive things fed into me at a young age that I didn't have too many negative self-images other than, just being a Black man that in a primarily white town. Even white folks had a different respect for my family and myself. And I think that really comes from the way my mother treated people and carried herself, the way my grandfather treated people, carried himself. That favor went over to me, that I had a lot of positive self-image of myself. So I'm very confident, very self-aware. Went to UT, graduated, and at the senior, I really had to think about what I wanted to do, because I started out wanting to go to law school, get into politics down the road, and be a public servant in that regard. But I didn't know God would redirect my career from law school towards more of law enforcement. And that's where I ended up. And I still found public service and service in that area. And I'll tell you, Mike, it wasn't until I met the first Black man that I ever saw in my life actually running something and was the boss, my mentor and the chief. They had just hired him when I was working as a security officer my senior year, that I said, okay, I can do this. And he actually took me aside and said, man, you got a college degree? You want to get into law enforcement? Because I wanted to go to FBI at the time, or the U.S. Marshals. He said, we don't have many Black men like you that want to get in this. And he told me, man, you can provide for your family. Let me tell you what it's done for me. He said, this is a missed opportunity from our communities that we need to get in and be serving our communities. And he said, I'm going to mentor you, hire me on the spot. And the rest has been history. It's what I've done. And I've seen the benefit, especially for us. There's so many opportunities in these public service sectors, but a lot of times we don't have people that look like us that can guide us, mentor us. And that's what I have that most people don't. And I don't take that for granted.
Hold on, dude. We have to pause there for a second, because you mentioned that a brother saw the potential in you, pulled you aside, and took you under his wing. Brothers, pay attention to what he just said. Another brother saw the potential in Leshuan, pulled him to the side, and took him under his wing. So that is a firm example of why we need brothers in every space, in every segment, in every industry, in every state, in every corner of the world, because we can identify with each other. Even if our experiences are not identical, we can still identify and see the humanity in each other. And when I see a young brother coming up, I feel like it's incumbent upon me to pull him to the side, put him under my wing, and mentor or usher him along. I had a very similar example when I was doing pharmaceutical sales. I had a regional business director. There was this brother who was a regional business director. He covered like a third of the United States. And when I was young, I was like 25 in pharmaceutical sales. Nothing was really special about my performance, but I was able to work conferences all over the country, in New York and Orlando, and going to these different things and going up to Howard and doing recruiting events at this place and that place. And I'm just like, wow, I'm just given all these opportunities. Years later, this brother served as a mentor for me, in the industry. And I asked him, I said, man, why was I given these opportunities? Like, why was it me? Why was I chosen to get all of this? Because my performance was good, but it wasn't like off the charts or whatever. And he said, Mike, I saw you and I wanted to make sure you got some of the same opportunities these white boys are getting. And I was just like, dude, it sent chills up my spine, because it was showing the power of having brothers in position who can see that I need to pull you aside, take you under my wing, and give you some of the opportunities that other people might overlook. And when you said that, it literally touched my soul in regards to that was part of my experience in regards to sales. So brothers, if you got somebody that you see potential in, you got a young brother that you see potential in, it's not a choice. It's a responsibility for you to pull him aside, take him under your wing, and show him the way.
And you said something too, Mike. I want to jump on real quick. And you actually had this conversation with me, what was it, 2 days ago? Mm-hmm. And you inspired me to do something. I took and did what you told me to do. Mm-hmm. And you're paying it forward.
Yes.
Because you're practicing what you preach. But there's a book, man, by, and I'm going to jack the name up, but Ajomo Alu. I'm dragging her name up, but go look up the book. It's mediocre. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in this book, she's talking about the impact of the dangerous legacy of white men or white men America, and how easy it is to be white in America and have things just laid out for you and find your way, even if you're just average, mediocre. And a lot of the rest of us, whether it's male, women, straight, or gay, or you name the marginalized group, we don't have it as easy. We don't have the access. So representation matters. People who, like you said, see the humanity and making that way for you matters. And not only that, encouraging you, because you weren't brought up to think, oh, I'm supposed to, I grew up, white men supposed to be running stuff. That's why when I had a black chief, that, like, hold up, a black man telling white folks what to do? And I'm from a small town. Where does that happen? I ain't seen it. I ain't seen no black man, where people, even the black doctors and professors were kind of like paying homage to this brother when he walked into the room. That was something new to me, man. And he has his own story. He not only is my mentor professionally, he's my mentor even as just a man and as a man of God, because I've known the brother for 17 years now. It's about as long as I've been in the career, as long as I've been out of school. And he has really made a difference. And so, white people have it laid out for them, especially if you're a white man. Every other marginalized group, we don't have that. So it's important to see it. It's important for someone to pull out of you what you don't even see.
Mm. That dude, what you don't even see. And that's why, to your point, what it is, your life journey, but then also we're going to talk a little bit about what you're embarking upon in regards to your life. But then what I do as well, it's just like, it's not a choice, it's a responsibility. When I see a brother that has some potential, that's teetering on something, I have to stop and go pull that thing out. And whether they take action on it or not, I've done my part. But the reality is I have to do that. And brothers listening, it's incumbent upon you when you see somebody, especially if you see another young brother doing something and you see potential there, it's your responsibility to pour into him, right? It's your responsibility to pull them up. And guess what? The goal is for them to be better than you. You know what I'm saying? The goal is for you not to sit on a perch and, be the dude at the top of the hill looking down at everybody. Tupac said it ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. Now, I know the context was something different, but the reality is this: I want everybody to succeed. I want all of us to have opportunity. I want us all to have unmitigated opportunities, which then lead to us walking in purpose and impacting the world in the way that we're called to do. And what you're doing and what you've shown just from that example is that. And what you're doing, paying it forward, is that. And that's what we all should be encouraged to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's kind of like that in a nutshell, to at least get you up to the career portion of it. And my last year in college, before I even joined the career, I had met my wife before I even got into law enforcement. So she actually predated the career, but they're about the same amount and length of time from the time we were dating. So
that's cool. And so to that point, you got into law enforcement and, you stayed there, you met your soon to be at the time wife at the time as well. And you all got married, got a beautiful family, you're doing a doggone thing. But then when we talk about the concept of, paternity leave and having kids and, the importance of dad having that intimate time, you and I had a really in-depth conversation about this about almost a year ago now. And you talked about the importance of taking time off so that you can be there as a dad. Talk to us a little bit about what inspired that thing so that that really led you to take some time off to spend time with your newborn.
I have 3 kids, Mike, and the first go around, I mean, when I had Olivia, we were in Knoxville still. I maxed out and took all the time, but at the time I had the time, and so really didn't think about it like that. And I was in a different position, so the department went really missing me. So I took the whole 3 months off and enjoyed. This is my first child, and so it wasn't that in depth for me to say, well, I'm taking time off. It was more of, it's here. I get to take it. I want to enjoy my first child and spend as much time as I could. And I appreciated that time. And she was very colicky and was a crybaby. So, I mean, me and my wife really had to tag team because there was no sleep. My wife went through postpartum depression just in that first pregnancy because of it's new to all of us. By the time we moved to Nashville and we have the second child, I had just barely qualified to have any time. They gave me 2 weeks. I took it and I was back to work. Now my wife's at home by herself with a toddler and a newborn infant. And I'm on the evening shift of all shifts. And it was tough on my family. And I still to this day have a lot of guilt for that time period because I left her by herself. Every evening I go, I'm like, man, the evenings when they're coming home from daycare, and this is when she's getting off from work, and she don't get to stop. She's got to go through until they get to bed. And fortunately, our second child was very good. He was a good baby. He's not so much good now. He's a boy.
It happens.
He get it at tail now because he's at that age feeling himself. But as a baby, man, you couldn't ask for a better baby. And so that kind of helped, but it didn't help me, man, going off to work every night. And not getting home to everybody was asleep and having to have her, she would sometimes come to work and eat lunch with me and do things just so I can feel a part of the family. But my days off, man, was in the middle of the week. It was never on the weekends. It was sacrificing. So by the time I had this third child, I think I went full circle where I wasn't going to take it for granted this go around just because it was there. And I know definitely those 2 weeks wasn't enough with the second child. And I think around the second child is when I started seeing, I'm just going to be transparent, it's when we started to see the first real challenge to our marriage. We've been together for 8 years and never had problems. It was a honeymoon, even with the first honeymoon.
Yeah.
But the challenge of me being on shift and her being by herself, you know, it started challenges where we even had to go to counseling to work out through those issues. But this third child and me maturing, me being a lot older. See, when I had my first one, I was 28, 29. This last child, I'm 37, 38. It's a big difference in maturity.
Huge difference. Yes, sir.
Let me tell you a quick story, Mike, and I'll get back to the point of paternity leave. I was playing the video game in Knoxville. I can't remember which one. I had two I played like religiously. I played Madden. I played NCAA college football, and I played Grand Theft Auto. Yep. Those were my games.
NCAA college football was mine. I played every day for about 4 hours until I got married, and I ain't touched it since.
Dude, and that's my story. Like, I would take my college career into the Madden career, draft my Madden players, college players over to the Madden, and build me a dynasty. I had dynasty in NCAA, dynasty in Madden. I had my thing going with Grand Theft Auto. I think back then it was San Andreas I was playing. And I'm gaming. My baby, the oldest child was in there just a crying. And this is when we had the 2-bedroom apartment in Knoxville. And I'm sitting, my wife's in the living room, and I'm sitting in the room that was originally my room. The baby was in our master bed and just chilling and crying. And I didn't hear him because I was gaming. My wife came in there with the baby now. You didn't hear her crying? I'm like, she crying? She just been crying. And you sitting right here and you playing that dang video game. and this baby sitting here crying. I literally didn't hear the baby.
Wow.
I didn't hear him. The game wasn't even up that loud. I just was into what I was into. And I think at that moment I said, okay, this is different, man. I guess I'm a father. Like, I went and gave that game system away the next day to the Goodwill. I took all my games, packed them up. Yes, I got to be a dad. This is, you know, my life changed. And I didn't know what that really looked like. I thought I did. That moment made me realize, talking about sacrifice, I gave my game away.
Dude, hold on. You said, I thought my life had changed until it actually changed. Like, see, that's something that we don't realize. It's like, you don't know until you know. It's like the concept of being a dad. I can explain it to someone. I can tell you the ins and outs. You can go through all the trainings in the world, and those are good. Those are very helpful to kind of give you a context, but it doesn't make sense until you're actually going through it. It's kind of like you can have practice all day, every day, practice all day. So you're ready for the plays to be called, but you don't really know until you actually get into the game and you got to execute that play. And you're like, oh, so this is what they mean by this and that. Same thing with training. It's like you can take all the trainings, the books and everything. And I encourage that. I mean, I actually have a course called Jumpstart Fatherhood for to-be dads. It's very important. But the thing is, those things really don't make all kind of sense until you're in the moment. But by training and being prepared for it, when you step into that moment, you're ready.
It makes it easier. I don't say you're ever ready. It makes it easier. You navigate it, and experience is the best teacher.
Yes.
Let's not get it wrong. The training prepares you so that when and I'm gonna go into law enforcement for a second. I'm going to a call. My training tells me how to respond and how to be prepared to have the edge. So mentally, I'm prepared, and that's where it starts in the mind. And you got to prepare yourself. But when you're in this situation, you might have to pivot. Things change. And so it's experience. It's the emotion. What did I feel? What was going on? What did I feel when that baby was crying and I didn't hear him? And my wife was really mad. My intention wasn't to be bad and to be neglectful, but I felt neglecting, like I wasn't a bad parent. So what you learn is give yourself grace.
Ooh, grace and space. Yep,
you got to give yourself grace. You gonna mess up. You ain't perfect. And so when I get ready to go to this third child, I understood for everybody. I had it lined up. I got this much time. I'm taking it all I can off. My wife needs me at home. But the baby, I want to bond with this baby. I want to have this baby. And me and my baby child to this day, we bonded. We, he knows his daddy. But he
Mm.
had a 38-year-old daddy opposed to a 28-year-old daddy. Olivia and me are bonded too, but man, I made a lot of mistakes with Olivia that I didn't make with Micah.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? My wife had someone there to tend to, because I wasn't just there. When I went back to work, my mother came for a couple of weeks. Her mother came for a couple of weeks. Her sister come for a couple of weeks. My sister come. Until my wife was ready to go back to work, I made sure someone was there to tend to her every need and want and we for the
Hold on.
baby.
Hold on, brother. Let's go back to what we initially talked about, sacrifice. And you use the word service. And to me, sacrifice and service are interchangeable. So what you learned as you matured through this fatherhood process is sacrifice and service means that at times I have to be there. And if it came down to the point in which I can't be there, I need to make sure that I have something, somebody there to stand in the gap for me. That's that sacrifice and service mentality that you're bringing to the table, and it's showing in your actions. It's not just what you're saying, because again, everybody's words don't always map to their actions. But with you, your words are mapping to your actions, and it's showing how sacrifice and service are at the core of who you are as a law enforcement professional, but more importantly, as a husband and father. Not just a father, but a husband and father, because you slipped in, and we can't omit it. Spending time with your new baby, spending time with Micah was important for you to bond. But you also, in the same sentence, said, I was also there to support my wife and make sure she had everything that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing here that we sometimes miss out on. And as dads, we get tunnel vision, right? We get tunnel vision sometimes, and it's just like, I'm just about my baby. I'm all about my baby. But then we blink and we don't forgot about our wife. Seriously, and it's very easy to do. And fellas, at full transparency, it's very easy to do. You get all about the baby. It's all about the baby. We forget, and next thing you know, yeah, you got a baby and you're a great dad, but now you got issues with your wife because you done forgot about her. Vice versa, they do the same thing. They're all baby, and then after that 6 weeks is up, we tapping her on the shoulder. She like, but I'm tired. I'm like, but yeah, but I'm backed up, brother. Whatever. So that's a side note, side conversation. But I just said that to say it's very easy to get tunnel vision on the baby and not remember your spouse. So you mentioned that sacrifice and service, but with maturity, you came to understand the importance of it is the baby, but it's also my spouse.
Mike, and I know we're going to talk about this, so I'm going to put a pin in this and bring it back up later. While we're on the subject of sacrifice, one thing men, and we're going to talk about it at the end when we start to talk about my wife. We want to be the head, and we don't want to feel emasculated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get this service, you ain't head in nothing. You're selfish. Because love sacrificed itself in coming to earth and becoming less than to have commonality with us, to allow itself to be the ultimate sacrifice. While in his face, we spit in it, we laughed, we sinned, and yet they still died for us while we was at sinners. See, that's the ultimate sacrifice right there, to give one's life. That served us, who washed the feet of his own disciples and told Peter, say, the way the world look at it, I don't look at it like that. So you can't be greater if you ain't lesser, if you ain't willing to serve. The person who actually serves is the greatest.
That's
and
it.
So when it comes to my wife, I'm always worried. You can't be worried about what you give, because that's what you're supposed to do. You always do what you're supposed to do, whether someone else does or not. The example I give in my family is that no one's going to be the greater servant in this family if daddy ain't the greatest. I got to be the greatest. To maintain my position, I got to be the greatest. I got to concern myself with every aspect of the family: emotional, spiritual, financial, the protection of this house. I'm the preacher, I'm the prophet, I'm the protector, I'm the provider. I got to be all of that. And that's sacrifice, man. That's service.
Service and sacrifice. Fellas, again, if you're not willing to serve, if you're not willing to sacrifice, then you're not willing to lead. because true leadership is service and sacrifice at the same doggone time. Now, brother, I mean, again, the notion of paternity leave and the importance of doing so. I mean, you've shown that it was about balance. It was about understanding the relationship and what your wife needs, but then also what your kid needs, but then also the value of you getting that bonding time. Actually, it's interesting. The course that I have, Jumpstart Fatherhood, one of the modules is all about a father's committing to intimate time with the newborn baby, because we tend to think that, okay, that's the mama's work, or that's whatever. I come home, pay the bills, change a diaper or something every so often, but it's not about that. But that bonding time, like you just mentioned, the bond that you have with your kid because of that intimate time you spent is priceless. But then also the bond that you are able to build stronger with your wife because you are able to support and serve is priceless. Like, I mean, the concept of paternity time, like, so fellas, one of the encouragements I have for you, and I wanted Leshuan to tell his story in that regard, is that if you have the capacity to take paternity time when you have a new baby, take it. Take it. Those are moments you'll never get back. Take it. If you don't have the capacity, find a way to, on the front end, maybe save up some resources so that you can fund your own paternity time, because those intimate moments are moments that you cannot get back, but they're extremely important.
Well, Mike, while you're talking about it, let me educate a little bit. By federal law, you at least get up to 4 weeks of protected and keep your job. And check your state, because your state might be different. I know Tennessee also matches those 4 weeks, so you can at least get up to 8 weeks uninterrupted time. Now, it's not always paid, so that's what you got. Like you said, you got to do that. Now, from a financial end, and I'll just give you a free advice. That's why we say save anywhere from 1 to 3 months of your salary. Mm-hmm. It's not always for emergencies. You can replenish that savings again, but if you have a child and say your company is not going to pay, but you can do that, take that time off and pay yourself while you're off. And for all you can take, say I only got 2 months, I can only take a month because I want to leave a month in the bank account. Great. Invest in some short-term insurance for that reason. Geico, they run those commercials. We laugh at that duck, but that's exactly what that is. Get you some Geico insurance. And if you need to take off, figure out a way to do it. Because like I said, I had 3 kids, 3 examples. Olivia, I took the most time off. Elijah, I took only 2 weeks. Mike, I took 6 weeks. And somewhere in the middle, I found what worked for me, because then the next 6 weeks, I figured how to have people here. But that time is not just for the woman, it's for you too.
Yes. Ooh, see that, and that's what I'm wanting. That's what I'm wanting brothers to get. It's not just for the baby. It's not just for your wife or your spouse. It's for you as well, because these are moments that the thing about having, this is interesting. Like when you think about kids' clothes, right? So as an adult, when you buy clothes, pretty much unless you put on a lot of weight or lose a lot of weight, or unless the clothes wear out, you can pretty much wear them clothes in perpetuity, right? With kids, when you buy clothes, because them little jokers are growing, depending on what stage they are, you might get a good month or 2 out of them. And not because the clothes wear out, but because the foot no longer fits in the shoe, or because those pants no longer button up, because they're growing. And I said that to say, when kids are newborn, when kids are first born, you never get those moments back. You never get those first 6 weeks, those first couple of months. You never get those back. It's not like 3 years from now, I can go back and get those. No, dude, when they're done, they're done. So you have to capture the moment, and you have to be in the moment to make the most of it. And again, I'm very sensitive to the fact that I do understand that there are brothers in positions in which you might not be able to take that. I mean, like we mentioned, saving up for months, and maybe you're at a point in which the baby's coming soon and y'all didn't prepare, and so you don't have that capacity. Don't feel bad about yourself, but find a way to get those intimate moments in, because paternal time is extremely important for the baby, for the mother, but then also for you.
Yeah, because you won't go back and regret it. You won't have the guilt. The guilt I had moving to Nashville, I didn't have that by the 3rd child. I left my wife to do this I didn't have that guilt. Mm-hmm. I felt good when I went back to work. I felt good by the time I spent. I went back to work productive. I went back to work ready to go back to work.
Yeah, because you spend enough time, you're like, well, it's time to go.
Yeah. And so
Yeah, but
I say it's for you.
Yeah, you have to figure out what works for you. But the biggest thing is I don't want brothers who maybe aren't in that position to feel bad about it. You just have to figure out what works for you. And so maybe if you can't take time off, okay, well, guess what? My free time is going to be paternal time. I'm going to have me intimate time with my kid. I'm going to support my wife in the times that I can do so. So we need to make sure that we at least emphasize that and make that and be intentional about that. So paternal time, that's one of the things. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and you're a black man in law enforcement. And again, we're in 2021, and 2020 was hot as it pertains to law enforcement. It was a lot of, defund the police going out. There was a lot of the issues going on against us as black men, as black people. And a lot of the target of some of the issues that were going on was law enforcement. Like a lot of us collectively were going directly at law enforcement as they are basically ground zero in the major issue that is kind of perpetuating a lot of the issues that are going on. You're a brother that's actually in law enforcement. Talk to us about how you, from an ethical, from a moral, from a personal perspective, how you navigate all of this that's going on, and in essence, keep your sanity, brother.
Yeah, a lot of people have strong opinions. This is just a profession I chose to provide for my family, the vehicle for which the outlet of who I am comes out best while providing for my family. If I'm a servant and public servant at that, I mean, when you think law enforcement, that's what we're supposed to be. And so I've been fortunate to work for two great departments, one in Knoxville and one in Nashville. And in the course of 16, 17 years, I've gone up the ranks in both. And currently I'm a captain, so I'm upper management. So I get to dictate a lot of the culture and have a lot of input on what those people on the front line do. And I've also have been on those front lines. And so I can relate to the challenges. I tell you, from the frustrating part of it, it comes both ways. It's that duality. And you get it from both ends. You get it from being just black and a male. There's certain things we have to be mindful of. I had a conversation today with one of my colleagues, and it's just a reality of 16 years. I can't express to this white colleague who's calling me with good intention and say, hey, man, you sound like you dropped the ball on something. Accountability, being accountable. I don't mind that. If something I need to hear, you hear it. But I let them know, I don't really care about what most people say because I don't trust a lot of people in the career because everybody's looking out for themselves. I can trust them when it comes for my life to get my back. But that politics, man, people jockeying for positions, they looking for you to fail. But then for the fact that you black sometimes, they don't even subconsciously, they don't know. But if you say something, see, that's because I'm black. I can't say it. And if I tell you that, you say, well, you're saying I'm racist. You've been brought up in America, all of us racist. All of us are. This is our culture. And we try to pretend it don't exist, but it does. The culture that says whiteness is rightness. And everything else is bad or other or foreign. So it's foreign to have a black man in my position. So I get that. So I'm fighting that, but then the brothers and sisters don't trust you. So I got to prove something to them. So I always have this pressure to prove something, but I'm gonna tell you something. I don't care what no one thinks. This is what God called me to, and this is what I love doing. And if you don't have people like me doing it, that's conscious of all of it, what do? We give up. It's like saying, go back to Africa. No, my ancestors built this country. I'm not giving up what we built and poured and sweat, and my ancestors here. I have every right to be here. And if there's a cop being called, I have every right to have cops that look like me. So I got to demand it. And then I got to go be that cop to serve my community, whether you trust me or not. I know my heart and my intention, and I got to go prove it every single day. And it's just something we carry. We know we got to do that. And you complain, but you better complain to the right people because everybody ain't trying to hear it. And that's just the reality. It's a duality. The white colleagues might find that you're doing something wrong, and then you hear them out and you're like, I ain't doing nothing wrong. Y'all just trying to find something. And then sometimes it is legit. But then the black folks and people in your community say, man, you're doing something wrong. How can you sell out? You know the origin of law enforcement in America? Yes, I do. I know the history. I teach criminal justice. I'm not an idiot. I have a master's degree. I understand this. But I also understand with any system, you got to have people on the outside and on the inside putting pressure in to change that thing. And if you don't have people like me, if you don't have people like my mentor, you don't get the Black men and women who've gone on to be chiefs of other departments to change those cultures, to hire other Black people who would be in position. I wouldn't be a captain if I didn't have that man. I wouldn't be in the position I am today if I didn't have that man. So you got to understand, Joseph was planning in Egypt for a purpose. Sold into slavery, but at the end of the day, man, the same people who sold him into slavery, the same folks who he ended up rescuing. God put his people in every place. And Egypt was wicked and evil. And yet God put them in Egypt for a time like this. So he has his people everywhere and everything doing things. So I don't make excuses for what's going on. We need to be held accountable when we're wrong. We need to do better as a profession. We need to be more standardized across the board. That's the biggest problem in just law enforcement. There's no standards nationally. Everybody making their own rules. That leads to the chaotic responses and the chaotic things that you see across the country.
That's, brother, that's powerful. And fellas and ladies listening too, that's coming from a brother in law enforcement. And he posed the question, if you don't have a brother like Leshuan in that position, then who do you want in that position? If you don't have a brother who understands and sees the duality of being a Black man, raising Black sons, a Black daughter, having a Black wife, but yet also navigating this establishment that is not primarily Black, and you can see both sides of it. Like, if you don't have a brother there who has that empathy and understanding, then who is it that you want there? Because the thing is, I think it's interesting, most of us inherently are selfish, meaning we want what we want, and I want what's best for me. Regardless of how that impacts everybody else, I want what's best for me. And if this impacts me in a certain way, that's what I want, right? I mean, most of us, we operate that way. That's how we vote. That's how we spend our money. That's the neighborhoods we live in. I want what's best for me. The schools we send our kids to, I want what's best for me and my family. It's like we operate that way. And the reality is, what's best for you might not necessarily be best for everybody. And that's the part that's kind of a challenge. And what's interesting, we talked about leadership is service and sacrifice at the same time. Most people, and this is just me stepping out on a limb, most people are not necessarily wired for leadership, especially public facing leadership, because they don't have the ability to deal with the duality. It's that selfish thing, and they want what they want, how they want it, when they want it, but they don't have the capacity to take a step back, recognize nuance, and see that, okay, I know I want this, but in regards to the greater good, what should be done? And I think that's a challenge that a lot of us face, but I think that's also an honest in the mirror look that we all need to take in regards to, are you personally wired for public facing leadership?
And that's a good way of putting it, Mike, because that's all law enforcement is. A paramilitary organization. When you think about military, you got those soldiers who are your infantrymen. They take orders and they go perform the task. And then you got those generals and those people who are the leaders and the ones who are leading the soldiers into combat, coming up with the strategies and carrying it forth. And so you need it all, but everybody's not meant to be on that officer level and that officer trajectory, and not everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are fine at doing those tasks. Just be good at it. Everything you do to the glory of God. But some people do aspire to higher levels, but in all of it, just be good at what you're doing and be okay with that, and make sure you gave your best. And in law enforcement, this is what a lot of it is. It's leadership, and your agencies. And I'm going to say this once I say this statement, I'm going to follow up. Your agencies are reflective of its leaders. But you get the leaders because law enforcement was made for the people, by the people. Remember, the first law enforcement, long before we got to America, the first original law enforcement that was in 1829, in London, England, by Sir Robert Peel, who was a politician. He created the first police, and he had 9 pillion principles that we learn about in the police academy. This is legislative. And all law enforcement is reflective of the people. It's government. We are the government. The people are the government. So if there's something that you don't like about your law enforcement officials, then look at your own societies, your own governments, and say, do they reflect our values? Is that who we're voting in? Because a lot of times the chief answers to the mayor or the city planner. You know what I'm saying? That's who they report to. And those people are elected. Your district attorney, they're elected. Your sheriff, they're elected. So if you have a problem with how policing, go vote their butts out and put people that's going to hold them accountable and say they got to reflect our values. And we know that's not easy, but that's the struggle. That's the battle we do. You get mad because we enforce a law where they shouldn't be smoking marijuana. I don't think it should be a crime either. But if you're going to smoke it in my face, I'm taking your butt to jail because it's the law. If you don't like the law, change the law. And I'm not in agreement with all the laws, but I have a job to do.
I might not be in agreement with all the laws, but I have a job to do. And you mentioned the concept of the structure of like a paramilitary organization where you in essence have foot soldiers who execute on what they're directed to do. So, I mean, you think, and to me, the military is the best example of that. When you're on a military mission, if your leadership says y'all go and y'all clean this town out and this is what you better do, you don't answer questions. You just go and do what's told. So when we think about, and it goes, and it's interesting, when we think about policing, it's all reflective of leadership. If leadership and the systems of leadership were reflective of the people, then the actions taken by the foot soldiers, by the lower ranks of the brothers and sisters, the individuals in law enforcement, the activities would be different. So it's all reflective of leadership. And so to your point, if we want them out, we got to vote people out. We got to understand that this is all political. And this is, we have to be engaged in that part of it. And it's not always about fussing at the infantry. It's not all about fussing at the people on the ground. It's about getting to the folks at the top because they're dictating the actions of those individuals on the ground.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that put a lot of nuances and complexities into some of the things. For example, people say, well, why ain't they fire these officers? Well, if they have a union, do you understand how the unions work? Do you understand how you got to go through processes? Sometimes, like Kentucky, for example, Breonna Taylor, there's so much more to it than meets the eye on the surface. And the district attorney was someone that is an elected official. You could have changed a lot of that, just changing who you vote.
Getting the joker out of the office.
Get the joker out of the office, reopening the case and looking at it from the perspective so you could hold people accountable. And because that happened in one city, now the rest of us around the country's got to bear that. And I think it makes it dangerous for us as law enforcement in doing our job when we don't have people held accountable when it's obvious there's wrong, whether it was a mistake or not. She was in crossfire. They went in. Now the details to that case, like I said, late night, no knock warrants, all that. That's something totally different that I wouldn't necessarily weigh in and say I agree with. But that's the policy they had in place. But if you come in my house, I'm shooting at you.
That's right. That's right. It's real talk. I mean, so to your point, it goes back to the notion of policy. It goes back to the notion of leadership. And if those policies were in place that allowed that type of action to take place, then the issue is definitely if people did wrong, they need to be held accountable. But the real issue is with those individuals who passed those policies, which allowed actions like that to even be a possibility.
Yeah, again, I think what this summer has done and where we're at is given a lot of people who are sincere time to reflect and review those policies. And if you're in law enforcement today and you're a leader, you shouldn't wait for people to tell you. You need to be proactively looking at your policy and say, does this best serve the people? Put us in the best position to accomplish that. A no knock warrant, or can we get that joker at work later?
That's
what's going to put us in the best position so everybody walks away because I don't want to put that officer getting shot at. But if you shoot at me and I'm an officer, I'm shooting back because I got to go home live to my 3 children too. But these are where we have to think about and be proactive from the law enforcement's perspective. We learn from these lessons and say, how do we do it better? You know, this whole notion of defund the police, the terminology is one of the things that's contentious. But what I do understand in the argument, and I do agree, is, and this is just a fiscal conservative in me as a voter, do we put our money where we get the most bang for our buck? We ask officers to be everything, do everything. You don't want to pay for it. How you gonna get all this training if you ain't paying for it? How you gonna get the premier officers if they get the lowest salaries of all your public servants? You got to pay for that. But the same token, some of the stuff we ask them to do, should they even be doing
it? That's real.
Should I be going to get the cat out the tree? Is that the role you want your law enforcement doing? Then fine, that's great. Should I be responding to the mental health person? I didn't go to school for that. But, you know, the scripture even said the soldier don't bear the sword in vain. So do you want to put us there? Because every time an officer show up, there's a gun on the scene. I don't care what the call is, there's a gun on the scene. So am I wanting a kid who's mentally disturbed to be dealing with, say if they have Asperger's or Alzheimer's, or not Alzheimer's,
like autism or
something. Is that what I want to be paying for?
Or would you rather have someone who's a mental health professional be trying to deal with
those are good arguments, and those are good things where we need to really look in, talk about, and think about how. I think what it's forcing us to do is to rethink what the police is for, how do we use them, and how do we properly fund them for what they really are supposed to be doing to serve. I don't think you don't need no police. If someone's breaking into my house, I want somebody with a gun to show up. I don't want somebody, you know, that's unarmed saying, hey, sir, I know you got a gun, or a bank robber, you drop it. No, I need someone that's going to meet force with force. But for a lot of the things that we've seen in this nation, a lot of things that's gone bad, the majority of it did not need an officer with a gun to resolve some of these calls. And that's one of the things I tell, and we talk about, at least at the agency I work, we talk about policing by proxy. If you have a bias, you call on this young Black man with Skittles and some Lipton iced tea with a hoodie. That's your bias. What is this person doing that's criminal? It's ongoing, and that's a danger to the community that you need a police officer. That's policing by proxy through your bias. Are there other mechanisms in place to make you feel secure in your environment? And why are you so insecure by a 15-year-old kid? You know who I'm talking about there.
We all know. And you know, and it's interesting, but again,
that wasn't an officer involved thing there.
No, it wasn't. But the whole premise
of we deal with,
But I'll say the thing that's so interesting about it, it's like we all need to think, and we need to think about the greater good. And at the end of the, you know, I was listening to someone talk about the concept of deals and negotiations. And one of the things that they emphasized was they said that a good deal, a great deal, is a deal that's great for all parties involved. And so, because a lot of times we're wired to think that I'm supposed to win. This is supposed to be about me. Again, it goes back to that thing I mentioned earlier, being selfish. A lot of us are wired to, I want to go and win. I want to take this joker to the cleaners. But when it comes to a good deal, a great negotiation is that when everybody leaves the table, we're all happy. We're all taken care of well. We all leave whole. It's not like somebody got taken to the cleaners. This one won. This one got bankrupted. This one got whatever. And I think, to your point, as you think about, or as we think about policies from the law enforcement end, but then also from the people, from the politicians, from everybody, we need to always think from the perspective of coming to the table with a negotiation or a deal in which we all leave from the table feeling like, or knowing, not just feeling like, but knowing that we've all won in some capacity.
My mentor told me this years ago, and I dealt with a situation. He reprimanded. He didn't. I wasn't necessarily written up or nothing, and I didn't do anything that violated policy or wrong. But one of the things, it was a complaint, and he helped me understand the nature of the complaint and the complaint. And like I said, once again, I followed the books and all of this, and it wasn't even necessarily that. What he told me was, he said, LaShawn, think about, and this is the black mentor I was telling you, it's the way you handle that situation, the way you wanted Olivia and Elijah treated.
That's real.
And at the time I didn't have Micah, it was just Olivia and Elijah. And it made me think, and I wasn't being, my intention was good.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going by the book, by the letter. And it's most of the times we do that because it keeps us safe, but sometimes common sense do come into place. And in that incident, looking back, he's right. I definitely would have wanted Olivia and Elijah treated a little better in that situation. And the incident was just simply, it was raining.
Check this out. Check this out. Think about this. And it makes me think about the concept of just because you can, should you? Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And
if I'm handling every situation the way I would treat my children and want to be treated, or even the way, I won't even say the way I want to be treated. I take on a lot of stuff, but definitely, you want to push my button, do something to my kids. That's made it make sense, man. When we walk away, like you just said, when we walk away, everybody should win. I've had people come back that I've arrested and thank me. Thank me because they say, man, you ain't like every other officer. You speak to me with respect and dignity. Dude, you nice. How you end up being a cop?
Ooh, whoa. See, again, perspective and perception. You're nice. How did you end up being a cop?
It's been said to me on numerous occasions, Mike.
But check this out. That goes back to what we said before about understanding the duality of your position and your role, right? And asking the question to the people of, who would you rather have in this position? You much rather have a brother like me in this position because, again, I'm the one that they say is nice. How did you become a cop? Bro, dude, I'm gonna tell you, we can talk about this for hours. Like, I mean, this is one that we can go down a rabbit hole, and we'll probably have to come back for round 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 on it. But I wanted to move into the last part of our conversation, and that's about support. Again, you're a brother who basically you're the epitome of a leader, because a leader is all about service and sacrifice. But in regards to that, you're leading, but you're not always leading from the front. You're a captain in the police force and doing your thing. But this is an example in which you're leading from behind. You're leading in your support of your wife, who is a public figure in Nashville. Talk to us a little bit about the mindset of being able to do that and do that effectively. But then also let the fellas and ladies listening to know a little bit about, your wife's organization and some of the things that they're accomplishing.
Man, Mike, I wear this wedding band, and I remind my wife when we took our vows and the seriousness of the commitment. I had a candle, and you probably did this. Did Pastor Wakefield marry y'all too?
No, we got married in Los Angeles. We did the sand ceremony before the
but
sand.
She has her sand, you have your sand, and you're blending life. The two are becoming one. We had the candle. This ring has a vein in this finger. It's an artery. You cut it, you bleed out, because that artery goes all the way to the heart. This is your love. This is your heart. And this ring goes over that finger. The two become one. This is one. And it's encircled by the ring. And that ring is eternity. It symbolizes God who finalizes the covenant. So technically, all three of y'all in this together. Y'all one. Y'all one. God has become one. This is one finger, one ring, but it's one. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%.
One of the things that I come back to that is because I learned so early on that when I do something to my wife, I do it to myself, good or bad. If I do something good for her, it's for me, and it's gonna come good. If I do something bad to her, it's for me. It's gonna come bad. I'm getting it either way, but I do it to her. I do it for me. Whatever. Same with her. And if I'm the one who's making the most money in the house right now, great. It ain't about who's making the most money. This is for our house.
This is us. That's right.
It's us. If she's making the most money, it doesn't matter.
It's us. That's
It's
right.
us. We sit down and do the budget. We decide the affairs. You see what I'm saying? Being the head don't mean I'm in charge. I put my foot down. I want to use wisdom. I want to center God in every decision. So if I'm making a decision or she's making a decision, you better believe God is at the center of that decision. That's what's going to keep us. And so when my wife came to me, I think it was 2015, 2016, and she told me this idea she had for starting an organization, Equity Alliance. And at the time, man, we were struggling. She said, man, I want $250 to get started. I told her, yeah. But she didn't know 6 months earlier, God gave me a vision. And he told me, men, y'all better be ready to be set down, because in this new age, in this new era, what I'm bringing women to lead what I'm been finna institute into this world. We've led for a long time. He's like, I'm finna put women at the forefront of this new thing I'm doing. He told me this. This was my vision. God said in prayer and told me this. And he said, and in particular, Black women. And I saw an image of my wife. She wasn't in leadership or doing nothing at the time, but he showed me a vision, and he showed my wife leading this. So 6 months later, when she came and told me, I just laughed because I already knew.
You knew it was coming.
Knew it was coming. It was like the angel coming to, and it was Gabriel coming to Joseph and saying, hey, Joseph, I'm about to do this thing, and this woman who you've been wed to, don't put her away. But we're going to bring a child into this world, and he's going to be the savior of the whole world. But I'm telling you, because I know you as a man, how you going to feel, how you going to react, just because it's natural for us men to feel that way. Hold up, she pregnant, that ain't my baby.
That's right. Absolutely.
What's up with that? What you mean? God told you you're supposed to be leading something. I'm supposed to be at home with the kids. Man, that ain't the way, because, you know, we brought up in a very patriarchal society that teaches us a certain way. So I've had to unlearn some things. And learning support was the biggest thing. And so I had my Joseph moment. You know, Joseph, you get talked about at that point. But then after they come back from Egypt, when Jesus is 12, you don't hear nothing else from Joseph. You forgot about him. We talk about Mary. We talk about Jesus. Are you okay being that person, being in the background? While Mary's being lifted up and praised? Or Jesus, your son? Does it matter? My wife has my last name. That name and legacy, Oliver, is what's in the paper. Can I be proud of her and it not bless me? Can I be supportive of her and it not bless me, my family? Guess what? Because of what she's doing, she's opening doors for my children, my grandchildren. What can I do to support what you're doing? Because this is our vision. This ain't your thing. This is our thing. Because we both have a destiny. We both have purpose. And it's tied to each other. I don't believe God brought us together if we both didn't have something that is going to complete it. I can't do everything. She can't do everything. But what she's good at, she's good at. And when people see you, Michael, they got to see your wife. If they don't see you when they see your wife, something off.
That's it.
That's a package deal.
That's it.
What you're doing, she can be proud of. That's
right.
My husband.
That's right.
What she doing, you can be proud. Man, that's my wife.
Absolutely.
And it says something about the choice that y'all both made. So I made a good choice.
Yeah.
He who finds a wife, what?
Finds a good thing. Come on.
And what?
Come on.
He's highly flavored and blessed.
Come on.
Bro, I ain't got to prove nothing. Y'all see my wife. I be like Paul. I can toot my own horn if I want to and brag if I've earned the right.
There it is.
But I don't want to be conceited.
There you go.
Y'all see what she doing. So how am I not to be also like, man, you pulled that? I found her when we both had nothing. But God led us together, and all we knew is, man, there's something special about this woman. And all she knew is there's something special about this man. And as we talked, we said the common thing we both had in common from the beginning was God.
That's it.
And we said, man, he got us on a purpose, and we're going to be faithful, and we're going to be committed, and we're going to follow this journey out into old age, until death parts us. And so I think that's what I've done, Mike, is just heard from God, said, set back, figure out how to support, because what he is doing, he's doing through her for a reason. He has a plan. So I can't, what I'm gonna do, stop God and what he's trying to do?
No, just stay out the way. No,
I gotta
stay out
stay
the
out the
way.
way.
That's it.
If I need to be at home with the kids and my children, I'm gonna be at home with my children.
Dude, check this out. I'm gonna tell you what's so important. And fellas, I hope you're catching what Leshuan is saying. It's not about a title. It's not about a position. It's not about expectations of what people are putting from the outside in. It's about taking an inventory of what you all need to do individually within your setting and how God's got y'all set up, and taking action on that, whatever it is. If that means that you stand in the background and she's out front, guess what? That's what it's going to be. If that means that it's a moment where you're out front and she's taking the back, hey, that's all right. If it means that y'all are walking arm in arm on equal footing in this situation, hey, that's what it is. The thing is, it's about taking an inventory of what's needed, what's necessary, and taking action on that, and realizing that as long as God's in the center of it, you're good.
That's a great summary, Mike.
Dude,
That's
what it's all about.
Let me tell you something else, man. This is from the beginning. I was gonna pin this, and I was gonna come back to it. Charlene don't even know who she is. All she doing is being obedient. I don't even know who I am sometimes. All I'm doing is being obedient. What I mean by that is the way people see her, she don't see herself that way. She don't see herself as the woman of the year. She don't see herself as this powerful Black inspirational figure. She don't see herself. She'll never come home and toot her own horn and brag about any of this and never. That's what makes it so good, because she's so humble. And it's genuinely humbling. I have to, you was on the phone too. You talk about imposter syndrome. We have to beat each other up and lift each other up. Say, hey, look, you ain't gonna keep doing this negative talk. You done accomplished this. You done this. And it's almost like she forget it, because when you're doing the work, you don't think about it in the way of accomplishment. Dude, you think about it as purpose and task, and you go get the job done. But it's hard for you to see
it. But dude, I'm gonna tell you what's so interesting about what you're saying, and it's extremely important. If you look at anyone who is accomplishing amazing things, no matter what it is, whether it's in the public eye or behind the scenes, anybody who's accomplishing anything, they're doing the work. They're doing the work. They're not spending a majority of their time telling you. It's kind of like I think it's Charles Barkley said, if your mama got to tell you you's a good dude, then you're probably not a good dude, right? Meaning, and it was funny to hear it say that, but to me, I put that in the same light where somebody who's having to go out and tell everybody, oh, I'm the greatest, or I'm the man, or I'm the best, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. If you got to tell everybody, and you're spending a lot of time having to tell everybody how good you are, how good really are you? Because those that are really that good don't typically have to toot their own horn, because they got a whole lot of other horns being blown about them. They're about getting the work done. So fellas, if you take a step back and realize that it's about being humble, it's about doing your thing, but it's more so about just getting the work done and not being so concerned with having to toot your own horn. But there's a but to this though, right? But you have to also be able to tap into your courage and confidence. Courage comes from basically being able to do something in spite of a challenge. Confidence comes from being able to pull from maybe some of the successes or the things that you've overcome in the past, because we need to have a balance of both of those. It's not about tooting your own horn, but you also have to recognize where, okay, I have accomplished something, or I have done certain things, so I now have the confidence to go and take this thing forward. So I can't omit it. It's not about sitting around bragging about what I did. Like, we don't want to be spending the rest of our lives talking about how many yards we rushed for our senior year in high school. Like, dude, you 41, bro. It's like, I mean, who cares how many yards you rushed for back in 1997? It's just, it's irrelevant. But the reality is, it's about doing the work. Now, brother, let's, we're going to wrap this thing up in a second, because I don't want to keep you all day. Charlene has the Equity Alliance and that's based out of Nashville, correct?
Yeah, well, she's taking it statewide. It started in Nashville. Now they got people who work for them in Memphis, Chattanooga. They're doing a big push for, I think the election's February 13th down in Chattanooga. I could be wrong. Okay. I know they're doing some work down there and across the state. We'll come see you all in Knoxville too, because we really got to get Black folks registered. We got to get them voting. We got to get them recognizing their political power, and we need to educate them on their civic duty.
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll make sure in the show notes to have a link to the Equity Alliance, so you all can
equityalliance.org.
Equityalliance.org.
Yeah, the equityalliance.org.
Gotcha. TheEquityAlliance.org. So yeah, I'll make
Uh,
sure that's in the show notes. So fellas and ladies listening to, y'all can check it out and see what we're talking about in regards to that. But as we kind of end this thing up, Leshuan, give us a little snippet as to what's coming for you, because you shared with me that it's on your heart to really utilize your gift, your experiences, your skill set, your talents, the things that you've been blessed with to really impart into the world. And we've gotten a taste of it today. But give us a little snippet on what's to come, and then also how brothers and sisters can follow you on social media.
yeah. First of all, you can find me on social media, on Facebook, Leshuan Oliver.
Mhm.
Um, I might have to create a public page. I thought about that, Mike. I'm very selective on who I accept. There's got to
It's
be
all
definitely
good.
people I know, but
Well, check this out. Check this out. By the time we release this, because we're recording this earlier, and by the time this is released, we'll have a method from a social media perspective in the link
mhm.
for you all to connect with
but
Leshuan.
but I'm fine. I'm fine if you want to follow me on Instagram, Inspector GQ1
Okay.
on Instagram, and then Twitter, Leshuan O. So those are the three main ones
Mhm.
that I'm constantly on. I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not as active there. But
Okay.
those are my four platforms. What I recently announced, and this is what to your encouragement, because I was talking about starting a podcast
Mhm.
myself, and this reason is to spotlight everyday people. Um, there's service inspiration to me, but this walking in a way that's godly. It's almost like their life is ministry, and they
Mhm.
don't even know it. And so, a lot of times we get caught up on being preachers in the pulpit or evangelists, but there's so many different gifts. As you know, they talked about it in the scripture. You got teachers, you got people who prophesy, you got so many people who got different gifts
Mhm.
who
Mhm.
still edify the body. And so what I'm going to be doing with this podcast is similar to what we're doing today. Is just have conversations, bringing people on, spotlighting them, and talking about just their life in general and the things that they're doing. And hopefully in conversation, you can see the God in how he is really moving. And so I've been able to see it. And it's crazy because I've seen it from a perspective that a lot of times, one of the books I read is The People History of the United States by Howard Zinn.
Mhm.
He talks about it from the lens of history that's not in the white lens that we've
Mhm.
all learned it. So you get to see marginalized people. And this is kind of how this show will, not to say I won't have white folks on it, I will, but you definitely get to see people who every day don't get to be put in the spotlight to spotlight them. And one thing I like about your show, if you're a Black father and you're there or you're making every effort to be there, you're a success.
Mhm.
You're doing the thing, because a success isn't, and this is from Zig Ziglar, or not Zig Ziglar, he preceded Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale.
Mhm.
You've heard of Earl Nightingale.
Mhm.
He said success, in the way he defined it, is the pursuit of a worthy goal.
Mhm.
Not necessarily the accomplishment, but the pursuit of a worthy goal. So every day you get up and you're pursuing to be the best version of you, pursuing to put food on the table, pursuing to be a part of your kid's life, you're a success.
Mhm. That's
There
real.
might be things outside of your control that will not allow you to do some things, but you go pursue and try and give your best. You're a success. Some people won't even get off their butt and even try because they're
Dude,
afraid.
dude, come on.
Just go try. Give it an effort. My philosophy is this: the worst someone can tell me is no.
There it is. And check this out. I'd rather find out the definite no than later on think back on it. Could have been yes. So my whole thing, look, just put it out there, fellas. Look, we're beyond the place or beyond the time frame for, and I'm gonna use a reference here, but we're beyond the frame for punk ass faith. We gotta literally we cannot. And I know people ain't like, he said faith and punk ass. Look, I'm talking to the fellas,
You're right, man. Speak
dude.
truth.
We are beyond the place for punk ass faith, meaning we got to put it into action. And so that means we got to test it. What is it's kind of like you got this thing that works, but you never test it to see if it actually works. You just got it put up somewhere. You clean it up, you got it sitting there on the shelf, but you never test it to see if it actually works. The whole thing is this whole faith thing, dude. Literally, we're beyond the place for punk ass faith. Meaning, fellas, it's time to step out there. It's time to put it into action. It's time to try something. And guess what? If it don't work, guess what? Pivot. Try something else. It's okay. You're good. You're good. And fellas, I want we got to thank my man Leshuan, because dude, brother, you dropped gems. You encouraged us from the standpoint of the importance of paternity time, paternal leave, and time as dads with the kids and with your spouse. You encouraged us to think about law enforcement from a different angle, a different perspective. But then you also showed us the importance of service and sacrifice as it pertains to not always being out front and leading, because leadership is service and sacrifice. Sometimes that's out front, sometimes that's behind the cloak. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's still leadership nonetheless. And brother, you embody all of that. And I thank you for sharing time with us, man.
And appreciate it. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
No doubt, no doubt. Now, fellas, as always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on every social media platform out there. Subscribe to this podcast, leave ratings, because as you leave ratings, as you leave comments, it helps us to grow in the searchability of the podcast. We want Black Fathers Now to impact every brother across the world. Because look, check this out. It's all about Black male excellence from birth to legacy, right? Black male excellence from birth to legacy. We're highlighting these stories. We're helping brothers grow, become the best versions of themselves, because as we grow and become the best versions of ourselves, guess what? The world gets better. So we want to thank Leshuan Oliver. Literally follow him on Instagram, Inspector GQ1. On Twitter, it's Leshuan O, and I'll have those in the show notes. And he'll have a public Facebook link for me at some point before this actually airs. So we'll have a link for you to be able to follow him on Facebook. Look out for his upcoming podcast. Also, check out theequityalliance.org, theequityalliance.org, where you can check out his wife's organization that she founded, which is making great strides in the state of Tennessee in regards to politics and equity. And just check it out. You're gonna be like, yo, she did that. Whoo, yeah, she did that. But fellas and ladies listening too, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.